Former Deputy DHS Secretary Ken Cuccinelli joins me now. So great to see you this evening. Thanks for joining us.
Good to see you, Charlie.
So when you start to sort of unpack the outlines of this enormous fraud scandal, how important is the open borders aspect of all of this in terms of the Democrats' playbook?
Well, certainly as part of the Democrats' playbook, it's been part of it for 15 years. And what used to be a fairly bipartisan issue, you can go back to just the Clinton era when this was a bipartisan issue. Joe Biden voting the same way as conservatives when he was back in the Senate in the 1990s, just by way of example. And under the Obama administration, really it started under the Bush administration to see the political divide and the Democrats try to use the issue. Well, in the Minnesota, you've got this concentration of Somalis, I believe the largest concentration outside of Somalia. And some of them are here legally, as was noted earlier in your report. Some are here illegally. That implicates the open borders policies, as well as just the free parole, the asylum for any reason mentality of the Biden administration. And then you roll that into the kind of fraud at a scale I'm not sure we've ever seen in the United States before. And some of that funding is reportedly, from Fox reporting, getting back to al-Shabaab. And for your viewers, al-Shabaab is basically Al-Qaeda in Africa, is the simple way to think of it. It's a terrorist organization, vicious, jihadist, and some of this money is reportedly finding its way back to funding that terrorism. So this is unlike anything I think we've ever seen on the fraud front in the United States.
Well, certainly it raises lots of questions because, one of the things about fraud and stealing $9 billion, especially if you're illegals coming from a country whose GDP is not much more than $9 billion, it does raise a lot of questions about we don't know where that money goes to. To what degree do the sanctuary city policies hamper the efforts to crack down on this and get to the bottom of this?
Sure. Massively. Look, when I was the Attorney General of Virginia, we set records for health care fraud. And some of what we're looking at, you did child care, there was a focus there, but this is spreading across several areas in Minnesota, and it's all run out of the same agency. And their Attorney General, Keith Ellison, was covering for people. We know Minnesota Governor Walz was, let's just say, being unaggressive about policing and prosecuting this fraud. And when you've got those kind of sanctuary mentalities and policies in place, you make excuses and you cover up instead of uncovering and prosecuting, which is how you protect the American taxpayers and the American people.
Well, it certainly is curious, especially when you start looking at the number of people who are beneficiaries of some of this fraudulent money who also happen to be somehow weirdly politically connected to Tim Walz and Ilhan Omar. You're a smart political watcher as well. And I keep looking at these numbers, this $9 billion number, and assuming that it's anything like that, let alone larger than that. I also kind of think about it in terms of inflation. So not only did taxpayers, American taxpayers, get fleeced of that money and did it get stolen from them, but it also amounts to monstrous inflation that every single American is struggling under right now.
Yeah, there's no question. I mean, this is just part of it. But when you've got government pumping out money, and let's face it, printing money to pump it out this fast, which is what causes inflation, you can't police it at this level effectively. In Minnesota, the Democrat hierarchy didn't want to police it. And at the federal level, they were unable to for many years. It's taken the kind of aggressiveness that only a President Trump brings to the table to finally start cracking down on this, but it's been going on for many, many years. And, until we shrink government truly, it's going to be hard to police large-scale fraud like this on the front end, which is what American taxpayers deserve, is cutting this off before it gets going, not trying to recapture a bunch of money that's found its way back to Somalia, which will, of course, never recover.
Right. And I guess, along the lines of that, I hope that maybe politicians in both parties wake up and realize that these emergency funding measures, and we saw them during COVID,
right.
and quite frankly, we saw both parties getting in on it, where you have to hurry up and pass something. You can't look at it. You can't think about it. You can't put up guardrails to protect taxpayer money. You just have to pass it because it's an emergency. That's one of the ways we want that, and flat out corruption is how we wind up in a situation
right.
like this.
Right. We're going to be quoting Nancy Pelosi long after she's gone for the "you have to vote on it to find out what's in it" mentality. But her quote perfectly fits your description, Charlie, and I agree with you 100%. Until you're vetting this on the front end, and again, you can't do that if you have 72 hours to decide to vote if you're in Congress, and you also can't do it if you're spending money at the scale and level on a bipartisan basis that Washington is spending money at. And until that shrinks and they start parsing this on
right.
the front end, which they'll be able to do once it's much smaller, we're going to see more of this, though I'm not sure we'll ever see quite the mix of immigration, healthcare fraud with an enormous immigration, specific community like the Somalis together again in this combination ever again. I hope not. But it's also why you have DHS doing its own investigations, not just HHS and the FBI. There's an awful lot of agencies who have jurisdiction over various aspects of the law breaking that Minnesota has allowed to go on for so long.
Yeah. Well, I sure do hope that and I know you join me in this, I sure do hope we see a lot of people go to jail for a long time for what's going on out there.
I do too.
Ken Cuccinelli.
All right, we need to talk about what we just heard, because this Minnesota fraud scandal is unlike anything America has ever seen, and the media wants you to just shrug and move on. $9 billion. Not 9 million. 9 billion. Stolen from programs meant to help families, children, and people who genuinely needed assistance. And now we're being told some of that money may have gone overseas, potentially landing in the hands of terror organizations. If that doesn't wake people up, I honestly don't know what will. Let's be clear. This isn't mistakes were made. This isn't bad bookkeeping. This is deliberate abuse, corruption, and failure at every level, and taxpayers were the victims. Police scarlet open borders plus reckless policies equals disaster. We heard it straight in the interview. For decades, immigration used to be bipartisan. We used to agree on basic ideas like secure borders, legal immigration, protecting American citizens first. But now, the left treats border control like it's some kind of moral crime. Minnesota becomes a hub for massive fraud operations. Instead of asking tough questions, Democrat leaders hide behind sanctuary, policies, and political correctness. If you question anything, they scream racist, so nobody digs deeper. Meanwhile, billions vanish. That is not compassion. That is weakness. And America is paying the P. Rice. Police scarlet the leadership failure. Let's call the names. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. Attorney General Keith Ellison. Instead of aggressively prosecuting fraud, instead of protecting taxpayers, they look the other way or move way too slowly. Why? Because politics mattered more than accountability. Because protecting political allies mattered more than protecting your wallet. And the people tied into these fraud networks? Many were politically connected. Some allegedly linked to Ilhan Omar's circle. Tell me again how this is all just coincidence. Denke. Police scarlet massive fraud fuels inflation. And here's another truth nobody on the left wants to talk about. When the government prints trillions, throws money everywhere, rushes emergency bills through Congress and tells us, don't worry, we'll read it later. Fraud explodes. Prices skyrocket. Groceries go up. Gas goes up. Rent goes up. And regular Americans are left struggling while corrupt operators enrich themselves and laugh all the way to the bank. This isn't mismanagement. This is a system that rewards abuse, then pretends to be shocked when people abuse it. Police scarlet both parties help build this monster, but only one side refuses to stop. Let's be honest. Republicans have made mistakes too. Emergency spending bills get rushed. Oversight disappears. But at least there are people on the right demanding investigations, accountability, and real border enforcement. Meanwhile, Democrats push sanctuary cities, open borders mentality. Vote on it first, read it later, bills. And then they act surprised when billions disappear. We cannot keep doing this. United States, this is about protecting America, not attacking immigrants. Let me say something important. Legal immigrants who follow the law, who love this country, who work hard, they are not the problem. The problem is corrupt systems, weak leadership, and criminals exploiting loopholes while politicians cover for them. It is not xenophobic to demand secure borders, serious fraud prosecution, accountability at every level. That is common sense. Tage, that is patriotism. Bell, final thoughts. This scandal should be a wake-up call. People must be prosecuted. Systems must be reformed. Oversight must be real, not political theater. And voters need to start asking, who protected taxpayers? And who protected corruption? Because if $9 billion can disappear once, it can happen again. And next time, it may be worse. If you agree America deserves better, thumbs up, like, speech balloon, drop a comment. Loudspeakers, share this video. And make sure you subscribe, because the truth is not going to spread itself. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.